So today we're going to go over a few things. First, I want to give just a brief overview of observability and telemetry, then go over our problem statement, and then Travis will go over our timeline with you all. So right before I give some base definitions here, I just want to call something out. While we're showing Backstage's journey, all these practices and concepts that we're going to talk about and the tools like Backstage or Honeycomb, um, it's important to note that observability and telemetry are kind of agnostic of these things, right? These should apply to all applications. With that said, observability is the practice of understanding the internal state of a system by analyzing its outputs, such as logs, metrics, and traces. And telemetry is the automated collection, transmission, and analysis of data from systems to monitor performance and detect issues. So why did we see such a need for this? We needed to shift our thinking from a kind of this constant loop of reactive troubleshooting to switch to a more proactive, hey, let's use our telemetry, actually use it, use that data to identify critical issues and measure real world usage for our templates, our plugins, our catalog, etc. That way we can effectively prioritize improvements, features that not only optimize our devs' workflows, meet managerial requirements, but improve the overall application and the customer experience. And with that, I'll pass to Travis.
Cool. Thank you, Connor. So I'm going to kind of walk through our specific journey and kind of highlight a few areas that we stepped through that are really Backstage specific, and the decisions that we made along the way. So back in October of 2024, we really came up with the idea before we chartered and generated this observability milestone. We still wanted observability. We just didn't really know what we wanted. We deployed an initial collector, got it connected to the old Grafana instance, the original gateway collector, and we're seeing a lot of traffic, seeing a lot of events come through, but weren't really sure how to use it, weren't sure what we wanted to do with it. It was just there. We got word from the observability team that they were switching over to Honeycomb and wanted to onboard us. We signed up to be the first adopters of it, and we really settled down and decided our objective, what we wanted to get out of this. So we decided on ultimately just wanted some SLOs to be able to alert us based off primarily errors, things like templates not working, not being able to access the site, things along those nature. So we sat down and prepared to be able to onboard correctly. We initialized our auto instrumentation, installed the analytics plugin that team created for us. We got that all prepared. And when it was time, we onboarded to Honeycomb and we started to see again a boatload of traces. And we needed to kind of filter through what we were seeing and decide what was helpful, unnecessary, and weed out the noise to be able to get a better picture of what we wanted. Once we were comfortable with that, we kind of switched to shipping our collector to prod, and enabling this for both dev and prod. And once that was set up, we moved over to generating some SLOs and SLIs as a team, sat down and kind of reconfirmed that errors were our goal, what we wanted to see. We were limited to one, so this might not be the case for a client team, but we prioritized errors. Once we generated the SLOs and SLIs, we swapped over to making those alerts happen, notifying the team, planning a course of action, and providing that in the description for those alerts. So anyone that sees the alert can kind of action on it immediately. With the remaining telemetry that we were getting, and we're getting more by the day, we developed some dashboards. So dashboards around things like traffic, thanks to the analytics plugin. We get template usage, latency, things like that, things that we couldn't or weren't looking for in our SLO, we can surface in the dashboards. And like the OTel team said, we can create some triggers as well to still be notified, but we're not monitoring it in the same way. Uh, so with that being said, I'm going to kind of dive into a few of these pain points. First of which being was filtering the events. So when we initially set this up to point to the new Gateway Collector v2, we were seeing millions of traces a day, or excuse me, millions of events a day, and we needed to really figure out what was valuable to us. This was a great exercise as a team to really get to know our application, to get to see what Backstage was doing and confirm some of the things that we knew it should be doing and to learn a lot more about it. So this process took us a few weeks to really look through and prioritize what was important. We ended up cutting our number of events down from around 3 million a day to just under 500,000, while still getting the information that we wanted, the information that was relevant, um, before we promoted this to prod. This was super beneficial to us, and potentially this could save clients a lot of money if their like telemetry tooling charges by the event. And it's really mandatory to kind of implement at any client that has these kind of overhead restrictions. So that was our journey through filtering. We have a couple different filters. We can dive into that if anyone has questions, but we'll leave it towards the end. You can go ahead to the other one. So we have our SLOs and SLIs, like I spoke of before. We focus primarily on errors. We sat down and had conversations with Adriel. Joe Knight came to us with great conversations about if we're doing this correctly, walking us through like what's important to us. We kind of came up with ideas around potentially latency, throughput, availability, and error rate. Internally, for us, we settled, like I said, on error rates. That doesn't mean that the others aren't important. That's just what we wanted to kind of alert on and focus on. So we set up our SLO around error rates. It gave us the clear goals for our enhanced user experience. That was ultimately what we wanted to promote with observability. It enabled us to really proactively problem solve things that were surfacing that we might not have seen through typical logs and stuff like that. So um, that was our process of kind of generating SLOs and SLIs. Again, a very team-oriented conversation, as well as kind of going outside the team and really learning more about what we can do with our observability. Um, you can jump over to alerts for me. So once we had the SLO in place, it was time to really like notify the team. We settled for what's called a burn rate alert. We have two different burn rate alerts, and the first one is a general high level um, notification that comes through to our Backstage channel if we burn through 10% of our budget. So the budget is a metric that is created based off of successes and failures, which is defined by our SLI. We are currently monitoring all HTTP traffic, just making sure that we're not coming up with any errors or any status codes over 400. If we burn through too much of our budget, like I was saying, we get this alert in the bottom right corner in our channel. It says all hands on deck. We need to jump on this before we have impacted user experience. We can do things like plan a course of action. We can provide actionable instructions to team members and really start the process of remediation before it impacts too many people. Once we had that alert set up, we opted to go for a more immediate alert, and that has an allowance of about 8% of our budget being burned in 2 hours. More severe alert, it'll kind of do the same thing, but prompts the team in a different way. So the initial alert is really like, hey, we should take a look at this, whereas the immediate alert says, everyone gear up, the ship's going down, we need to fix this now. Um, and like I said, after we got those alerts working, we were comfortable with them, tested them. We started to take a step back and say, we achieved our goal, but we have a lot of telemetry that we really want to utilize. So we set up a series of dashboards. My favorites are the template usage dashboard and the backstage traffic. Those allow us to really see what our users are prioritizing or what's getting the most use, and allows us to really a uh, plan our work in the future of like what we could improve or what is the focus for users. Um, there's things that we could do better. We'll be able to see in those areas where they're visiting the most and using the most, and use it to plan some more work for us down the line. Um, there's, like I said, a couple different metrics that we wanted to be able to monitor with SLOs and SLIs, like latency and availability. Thanks to the KH team's work, we can now monitor our ITO traffic, make sure that we're authing correctly and getting into the app correctly. That's all surfaced through dashboards now. We just set out to kind of achieve the goals that we couldn't with SLOs through our dashboarding. So that was really what we have in mind. Now that the workflow metrics and traces are coming through, we can probably set up some dashboards around that. Thank you, KH team and Tag Ollie team, for basically setting up that work for us, and we'll start to monitor that as well. So we as a team really wanted to get an idea of what it is to eat our own dog food for Backstage, and prepare for potentially doing this at a client, generating some opinions, preparing, and we will hopefully be better off for it. So I'm going to pass it back to Connor.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis. To wrap up here, why does this matter? Why should we care about this? I think the benefits for the client uh, are really great. I mean, there's a few bullet points here, but just to touch on a few of them, a team can be finally proactive instead of reactive to dealing with issues by escalating and identifying and resolving potential problems before they impact the user. We can make data-driven decisions where, with the telemetry we're provided with, it gives us these actionable insights that will enable us and client teams to make more informed decisions that will be able to like optimize our application for users, and a more user experience focus. Since we know we have a much better understanding of how users interact with our system, that gives a user a more seamless experience, and it kind of fosters trust and satisfaction with them. So all that to say, this Travis hit on it earlier about I think also this being a team exercise too, all the way through, was really fantastic for us. We learned a lot about our application, really were able to deep dive on what's actually happening. And I just want to thank again Tag Ollie for all the awesome pairings for the last couple months here, I think. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. Any comments?